The city council meeting is now back in session. We are moving on to item number 12. We have the trim notice, DR 420.
Florida law known as TRIM was designed to inform taxpayers annually which governmental entity is responsible for the taxes levied and the amount of tax liability owed to each taxing entity. The city is required to set a millage and notice the residents in accordance with TRIM guidelines and timeframes. This item tonight addresses that requirement and gives the council the opportunity to discuss the city's budget for fiscal year 1920.
Okay.
That's 2019-2020.
All right.
And Mr. Helms has another PowerPoint available for you.
Council members, you have in your packets a copy of the form that would need to be submitted. That form is usually submitted electronically to the property appraiser. But before we get to talking too in depth about that, I have a slide, the next slide up, that gives a history of the millage rates for the city of Avon Park. You can notice that going forward from 2009 up to the current year, that those millage rates steadily decreased to 2014, and basically that millage rate has stayed the same since that point in time. That has significantly reduced the amount of funding that would be available to fund operations within your general fund. The next slide that I have for you basically shows the amount of subsidy to your general fund that is coming from the water and sewer fund. The current fiscal year that we are in, that amount is $590,000 that is coming from the water and sewer fund to the general fund to supplement your general fund. Now, if you look at the form that I have in front of you, if the millage rate were to be set at 2 mills, it would generate an additional $509,964 in ad valorem tax. And that represents the difference between what would be generated by 0.3 mills, which is $90,036, and what would be actually generated by 2 mills, which is $600,240.
Where are you getting those figures from? Do we have those? No? Or you just talking?
I ran those numbers based on the website that is provided for you to be able to complete the forms for the property appraiser. Whenever you plug in the millage rates there, it generates what would be what would come from
That's what I was asking, where
from
it was
that.
getting from. Okay.
Is that off of the certificate that's on the second page of your 600,000 there? That's your
Okay.
certification sheet that you have in here that you're
The
looking these numbers off of?
one that you have in there is the 2 mill one that reflects the $600,240.
So basically what he's saying is if we did that with a 2 mil increase, we would not have to borrow from the enterprise fund to balance our budget. It would be actually generated from ad valorem taxes instead of going into the water and sewer fund to help balance.
Raising the ad valorem taxes to what?
If we went up 2
2
mills.
I haven't done this in a while, so pardon me for being a little off there, but you're just setting the preliminary amount at this point, right?
Correct.
So you
Correct.
want to set it at the maximum amount because you can't go up after this without spectacular types of action. So I just want to make sure we're right on that.
That
Okay.
was one of my points I was
Okay,
going to make
good.
as well, too.
And the maximum amount is what?
The maximum amount that you can set is 10 mills.
It's not to say you're going to do 10 mills, and it's not going to be but your rollback rate you have to take into effect, right?
Well, it depends on the vote of the council. You can set your rate based on whether you have a majority vote or a supermajority vote or a unanimous vote.
But you, later on, what you do is you lower, you, after you do your budget and everything, you figure out what you need to be at, but you can't go up from there. You have to go, you can only go down, but you usually, I mean, 99 times out of 100, you go down.
Well, correct, and I don't think you would want to set a preliminary rate
No,
of
10%.
10 mils. That
No,
would just be
Yeah,
over the top.
right.
That's the reason for it that you see in there the suggested rate of 2 mils. Now, what that would give you the option of is at your public hearings in the month of September of being able to adjust that rate to whatever millage rate that you would want to provide for in your budget to be able to fund all of the things that you want to fund in your budget. But if you were to set it at 0.3 mils, then that takes away any options that you have at your public hearings, because there's no way that you could increase it without going back and sending out individual notice to every property owner within the city limits. And you would have to pay the cost of that mailing for that public hearing.
Do you have any anticipation as to what millage rate you're probably going to need for the budget that you guys are gonna want?
One of the things that will come up during the presentations that we'll have on the budget, the workshops that we have, will give you a much clearer idea of what the city manager is looking at on the budget, and then, of course, council would make the decisions related to that, so that when you get to your first public hearing, you will have an idea of what you want that millage rate to be.
Okay. So it's up to us what we set the preliminary rate at. You've given us an example of 2. Do you suggest a higher than 2 millage rate?
Again, any increases that you do are better done incrementally,
Right.
as opposed to trying to move everything all at once. At 2 mils, you would still have the lowest millage rate in the county.
Okay.
And surrounding areas.
But what is the what's the preliminary amount that you're recommending in order to make sure that we don't, I mean, absolutely make sure we're not gonna have to try and go up?
Okay. Well, if there's an increase to the fire assessment and the millage rate itself to 2 mils, then that would eliminate any subsidy that you have to the general fund from your enterprise funds, if that's what your goal is to do.
But your goal at this point, is it not, to not assume that we're gonna raise the
Millage.
the assessment, but having one that's high enough to where if you do decide that you're not going to, you still have enough to where you're not going to have to try and raise it at that point and do the spectacular notice that you have to do.
Correct.
So what is that rate that you recommend? Is
I would defer to the city administrator.
I don't want to be the guy that says we're going to have to raise taxes, but in all reality, when we're looking at sustaining the services that we've got and increasing the services that we've got, we're going to have to do some type of a tax increase. Is it 2%? I don't know. We don't have all those numbers in yet, but in order to set the trim rate, I would rather set it a little bit higher so we can come down instead of going up, as Attorney Burr was telling you. So to be safe, probably set it at 3.5% and then adopt it at a much lower rate.
and just bearing in mind for the public purposes, this is not what it's ultimately going to be. It's going to ultimately be what you decide after you have your hearings and so on.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
And our budget, I mean,
This
it's
is
going to
just-
show specifically where you're going to need, I mean, I don't want to raise it and then figure out how to spend it.
No, right.
Obviously, we
Not
want to
gonna
know
do that.
what it's going to be spent on first.
Absolutely.
It's all part of it.
Well, I think we have to look at this really at a multiple different ways. First of all, I believe the existing millage rate for the average homeowner is probably extremely low. And, I mean, extremely low. And, but then, of course, if we raise that a certain amount, we have to worry about what effect it has to our businesses, because there was a bigger change there. Because I think even if we went to 2 mills, I would say the average homeowner wouldn't go up more than $50 a year on the property tax. So I don't think that that's a big jump, but I'd like to know what that effect would have on the businesses. But I also noticed that you also told me that we have an excessive amount from the over budgeting from the previous year that we can borrow from this year, correct?
You talking about the salaries and wages?
Yes.
Okay, there is a surplus in the salaries and wages line item.
Okay, so if we could use that now, which is a large amount, instead of looking at raising our property taxes excessively this year, we could use that amount and just go up a small amount, and then next year go up a larger amount. Then we wouldn't have to borrow or from anything that was over the amount that was in the original budget for the previous year. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
So it may not be safe practices to go ahead and continue to borrow money from other excessive funds that we have, but I think if we have it now, why not use it and then correct it the following year? But I'm not saying that we shouldn't raise property taxes at all. And then when you look at that, you have to look at two different things. Do you want to put a higher limit up there and then we turn around and cut it down to half or whatever, and makes people feel like, oh, well, it's not so bad, we only went up half? Or do you want to have it kind of low, knowing that, well, it's not going to go up that much, even if we did go the maximum amount, that'd be safe? So we sort of got an oxymoron here. You know, if we went to 2 mills, that's the maximum amount. If we didn't raise it, say, more than 1 mill, then that's not going to hurt a whole lot of people. But I don't think you want to put down 4 or 5 mills and then say, well, we just went 2.5, and so we only cut it in half, and everybody says, oh, that's not too bad. So there's a lot of psychology in between this, but I think if we have excess money this year that we can use, whether it was over budgeted from the previous management team, that why couldn't we use that? And then if we make this 2 mills, we can definitely look at possibly making the increase at a far less than 2 mills. That would be the maximum. I could take that value as a maximum 2 mills, but I think we'd probably look at a lot less than that increase this year, and maybe look at a bigger increase the following year.
My
But
thought,
the point of this exercise really is just to set a arbitrary, it's almost arbitrary, but you
Right.
don't want a ridiculously high one like the constitutional limit of 10 mills. But you want one high enough to where there's no chance that you're going to have to go up, no matter what you guys, because ultimately it's going to be set based on what budget you guys set. All right? And then at that point, you know, if it turns out you have a lot of employees that you have to add and things like that, and you have to go up, then you really got a very difficult task to do and expensive and so on. So that's why I was asking the figure, what would be a reasonably high figure in public understanding. And I, you know, all 3 of my other cities have done this so far. And it's like, yeah, we understand it's not going to be what the figure is going to be, but we got to have it big enough to where there's no chance that we're going to have to go up based on the budget.
my
So
thought, let me just ask the question, bring a point out at least. If we're considering going up on the fire assessment and the ad valorem taxes all in 1 year, that might be discouraging, not look good on the council behalf.
Yeah, but
Maybe we could go, think about increasing one this year and then increasing another next year or something like that. Just a thought, you know.
Right, no, absolutely, totally fine with that. I'm just simply saying that that's the argument you're going to have in your subsequent meetings.
In the
that you're
budget
going to
hearings.
set this, not the argument for this one. The argument here is really just an exercise to set a fairly arbitrary number that's high enough to where you're not going to, you know, bust your britches later on and have to try and raise it and do that extraordinary notice that you have to do in order to raise it. So that's why, you know, that's all we're doing here, because not your.
Let me just ask you a question, Jerry. If it's Could it be considered that remaining the way it is now and considered raising the fire assessment later?
Yeah, you can
Okay.
lower it to whatever you want later on. And-
No, I'm talking about let it remain the way it is now. I'm just asking.
Which, as a preliminary number, you don't want to
Yeah.
do that, because if you later on decide that you need to go up, you've really created yourself a
You
lot
got-
of
you got
expense and
nowhere to go.
problem.
But if we later on decide this is where we need to be, then it would be okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you can, in your subsequent meetings, you'll be going over the budget, looking at the budget, and then based on the budget, you'll establish what the millage needs to be, has to be, in order to get the money to pay for that budget. Right now, we just have to set this because that's what they require, and it has to be high enough to where we're not gonna blow past it with the budget. It's not a number that's gonna be, as I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I haven't done one of these in a while, but all the other cities that have gone through the same exercise, and this is what we talked about, is it's gonna be high, but it's not gonna be the real number
Right.
necessarily.
This is a
But
fake
if
number.
it stays the way it is, if you set it the way it is, then you could have more concrete numbers to work on, as far as I can see, as far as the fire assessment. You won't be increasing both taxes in the same year. That's just a thought,
Yeah,
that's
but-
all.
Right, and that's a discussion you're gonna have later on, when you just set the actual millage rate.
But you're still borrowing from the water and sewer fund to balance your budget, over $500,000.
Yeah.
And
You're
that's
forsaking
what
the
I'm
future
trying to
growth.
avoid.
Yeah.
What was the premise for using the $2 with the information you provided tonight?
The 2 mills,
Yeah.
just a
One-
figure, it offsets that.
Yeah. Basically, that is what we were looking at, what is coming from an enterprise fund to the general fund to supplement it, and what would it take in the form of a millage rate to be able to eliminate that subsidy.
Does that include Nucor? And their projected revenues?
In the water and sewer fund, in the water and sewer fund, that would free up that amount of money to be able to go towards
So then
any
once-
projects that would need
Yeah,
to be
so
done.
once we get the budget more in line, I mean, if we settled tonight at 2, it sounds like that's reasonable, but if we settled for that number soon, then we can always drop it, right?
Yes.
So, but I don't want it to be that, okay, I've got 2, so I'm gonna spend every bit of it, and I'm just gonna load up here and load up there and do this and that. There's gotta be some level of comfort knowing that it's gonna be towards the enhancement of our existing infrastructure, or,
Well,
you
it's
know.
set by us.
Well, I know it's set by us, but, you know, the budget's gonna be provided
gonna
to
do
us.
it.
So
Yeah.
it's gonna be based off of what, you know, the city manager sees the needs to be.
Right.
So, you know, we haven't done any projections. I mean, you're talking about salary increases in terms of step raises. Guaranteed, that's not gonna be more than, you know, $40,000 a year. So I just don't know how that's gonna compensate for an increase in millage. I'm more aligned with what Brenda's saying. If we're gonna do anything, it should be along the assessment. But again, you guys have to set the budget together, and then we'll have to review it, and we'll probably have how many workshops on that?
Yeah.
2.
Well, I agree with you 100%, but I don't think there's anything wrong with this, just saying the maximum will be 2 mills.
Yeah,
then
no,
we'll
no, I don't have a problem with
So
that either.
I think that's the easy way, just to
Yeah.
say the maximum is 2 mills. That's what he came up with. That's the most we're gonna do. We're probably not gonna go anywhere near that. At least I hope not. But I think that this, for sake of time, let's just set it at 2 mills max, and we can always negotiate in the next couple of meetings and bring it down to that, or keep it as it is.
Yeah, but just to hit back on what you said earlier, David, you said that there's a surplus in the payroll, which is general fund. So if there's a surplus in there, why are we borrowing from the other one?
We didn't know there was a surplus in there. We didn't, that was unencumbered funds that was based on a projected analysis that Ricky did on where we would be at the end of the budget year with our current salaries.
Okay, so, but knowing that, where your budget is now and what the surplus is, that difference right there out of the.
All that'll
But
factor
that money
into
is
it.
still coming in.
Mhm.
So even though it was over budgeted, it's still money that was there. Is any part of that part of the water and sewer fund?
No.
So there you go. You don't need a water and sewer fund to be subsidizing the payroll right now because it's already
being
Over budget.
subsidized. Yeah.
Am I correct?
I think a lot of it has to do with planning for the future.
Yeah,
You
no,
know,
no, I
Yeah,
get that.
that's-
No, and we all agree on that, but again, if there's, obviously your budget's gonna dictate that, but if there is a surplus, what is a surplus? $1 million?
1.3,
Okay.
Okay.
We have 1,000,003, and we still need to hire 4 people?
more than 4.
Well, but, for right now, we're talking about budgeting for 4 people for having them outside, but we have the money right now.
I agree.
So,
Yeah.
anyway, that'll all wash out once you do your budget and you do your comparisons from year to year. So, I mean, right now, we're just really speaking arbitrarily,
Absolutely.
right? But, obviously, we know from what Ronnie said that we have some major improvements to be done here and there, and, those patch-up jobs and stuff.
Yeah, I think that's
And let's
true,
not
too.
forget, if those grants don't come in, then, someone's going to be on the hook for all that money for that water and sewer. So I'm just saying, there's a lot of work to be done
Yep.
between now and then. I'm okay setting it at 2.
Me too.
Is anyone willing to make that motion?
I'll make a motion that we set the millage at 2, at the preliminary rate of 2.
I'll second.
And knowing full well that we can go back to 30
I think
Exactly.
cents.
Point 30.
he had his hand up.
Sorry, Rick.
Well, I did have some additional information I was going to provide to council, but
Feel free, Rick.
So-
Kind of
You've
got ahead of
already-
ourselves in it.
you've already got a motion on the floor.
That's
unless
okay.
you
No one
wanna
has
hear-
to second it.
It's
I
already
did.
been
He
seconded.
did.
Oh,
I
okay.
did.
No, he did?
Yes,
Okay.
I
We're
did.
s- then we're
But
still
he
in
can still
discussion.
discuss it.
Yeah,
Do you want to
still
hear
discussion.
that information under discussion?
Please.
Sure.
Okay, be glad to. The next slide that I have
Oh, we're still on that.
is the millage rate considerations. And as we have already mentioned, this is an initial rate for the trim notices to be mailed out. Those will be mailed out by the property appraiser's office. And the next bullet point is what's already been discussed as well. The rate can be set lower than the rate on the trim notice at the public hearings on the budget that will take place in September. The initial rate, the next bullet point, must be submitted to the property appraiser by August the 4th of this year. So that's why it's before you at this meeting, that preliminary rate or that rate needs to be set. The next slide that I have were the items that were needed. First of all is the millage rate for the trim notices, which we currently have a motion and a second on that. The date, time, and place for the first public hearing on the budget. Normally, that could be a part of that motion, but there can be a subsequent motion made to set that first public hearing. My recommendation for you is that first public hearing be set on September the 9th, 2019, at 6 p.m. here in council chambers. I have already checked with the property appraiser's office, and that does not conflict with the county's first public hearing that's going to be held, because there is a preclusion from the city having their public hearings on the budget the same night as the Board of County Commissioners or the school board. Those two, school board has top priority, Board of County Commissioners has second priority, and then the cities come after that. So that would not conflict with either the school board or the Board of County Commissioners. I would also say that as far as the final public hearing, my recommendation on that, which you don't have to necessarily have as a part of this motion this evening, but that final public hearing be on September the 23rd at 6 p.m. here in council chambers, which would be 2 weeks following that first public hearing, which gives you the time to be able to publish the necessary notice of meeting, as well as the summary of your budget in the local newspaper.
These are all scheduled on regularly scheduled council meetings, right?
Correct.
Okay.
What was the first date that you had in September?
September the 9th.
999.
Okay.
Can you send us those dates?
9/9/2019.
It's regular council meetings.
Oh,
Their regular Monday, second and fourth Mondays.
We could have prior
They should've put all
discussions
that in
before that,
here.
correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Related to budget, there will be, I'm sure it will be
Okay.
quite a bit of
Quite a few,
discussion
okay.
relative to
Those are
budget.
your budget hearings. We'll have budget workshops in
Yeah.
August.
Yeah.
And those are the
Um,
dates. You said, did you give those dates on budget workshops yet, or is that
Not
next?
That's what I was going to bring up.
Okay.
Before we leave this topic, I was going to bring that up. The other thing that sort of gets lost in the shuffle here, and it's something that we need to be aware of also, your millage rate determines the contribution that you make by the city to your CRAs.
Yes.
We know.
So if you have a millage rate that is higher than .3, then the amount that would be transmitted to your CRAs would be greater than that. To give you an example, Main Street CRA now, this is including both of your Main Street delineated areas.
What you mean,
Currently-
hold up? You say both of our Main Street.
Expanded.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Currently, the amount that you're transferring is $6,195. If your millage rate was set at 2 mills, the amount that you would transfer would be $41,298. For your south side, and this would include both delineated areas for south side CRA, you're currently transmitting to that fund $1,810. If the millage rate were at 2 mills, that amount would be $12,064. And for the airport CRA, you're currently only transferring $722. That would go to $4,814. Now, the county also makes a contribution to the CRAs, and that is based on what the county's millage rate is. And the county's millage rate is upwards of 8 mills in that range.
8.5, I think.
So significantly more would be transmitted by the county to those CRAs. But I wanted you to be aware of how that would impact the amount of money that goes to your CRAs as well, because one of the issues with the CRAs is the ability to be able to fund projects. And this would certainly provide some additional funding for them. Now, I do have a slide relative to the budget workshops, but I'll address that after the vote on the motion for the millage rate.
Okay.
And there would need to be a second motion as to setting the date, time, and place for the first public hearing.
Right. All right, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Is there anyone else wishing to speak to that? Any questions? Seeing none, we will call the roll.
Councilmember Gray.
No.
Councilmember Spurlock.
No.
Councilmember Sutherland.
No.
Deputy Mayor Bernard.
No.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
The motion fails.
Okay.
Okay, we still have to set the trim.
Okay. Well, let's start out with setting the meetings. How about that? Maybe we can all get some agreement there. So we have the public hearings for September the 9th at 6 p.m. and September the 23rd at 6 p.m. Anyone wishing to make that motion?
I'm sorry, you said the 9th and what date? The
Yeah.
23rd?
23rd.
September 9th and September 23rd.
So moved.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any questions on the hearing dates?
September 9th and the 20th.
Seeing none, we'll call
Those
the
are
roll.
council meetings.
Yeah,
Councilmember Gray.
okay. Yes.
Councilmember Spurlock.
Yes.
Councilmember Sutherland.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Bernard.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, how about the workshop dates?
Before I get to the workshop dates, did the motion for the millage rate to be set at 2 mills pass?
It
No.
failed.
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 That will be coming back up after we set the workshop dates. So we need 2 workshops, 1 workshop,
At least
Um,
2,
at least 2.
yeah.
Okay.
The slide that I have relative to that basically talks about whether or not you would want those first bullet point, whether you want them on regular meetings of the council or special meetings. I would recommend that it be a special meeting.
Yeah.
Because of the amount of time that would be involved. I don't know whether you would want to set those like you have in the past on a Saturday, or whether you would want to set it during a day of the week, beginning in the morning, so you would have plenty of time to address the budget.
I would say at least the first one on a Saturday, because that's going to be the big one, and then the second one typically is to make, fine adjustments, so. But does anybody have a problem with both Saturdays, or?
I don't,
No, it doesn't matter to me.
Okay, so we want to accomplish those in August, I'm assuming? Okay.
Yes.
So you'll be looking at, the 10th and the 24th?
sounds
Or-
good to me. Is that good with staff? I mean, they have to prepare everything, so would that be good with them?
Or would you rather push it to the 17th and the 31st?
I defer to Ricky on that one. You open around then?
While he's looking, when's the
My
audit
ca-
coming
my
up?
calendar is open, but being able to finalize all the information, and be able to get it to council in advance of that is what I'm concerned about.
Let's go to the 17th then.
That's what I would think.
17th and 31st? Good. And time of
8 is fine with me. The sooner you do it, the sooner you get
Yeah.
out.
8 a.m.?
Mhm.
All right, 8 a.m. it is.
Maria's buying donuts.
I'll buy donuts, no problem.
Okay, so we're looking for a motion to have the budget workshops for August 17th and 31st at 8 a.m.
So move.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions?
I presume that I'm excused from those.
Yes.
We have
Bless
to
you.
make a formal motion for that, don't we?
Do we?
No. Bless you, bless you.
I think in the charter it says so.
All right, if there's no other questions, we'll call the roll.
Councilmember Gray.
Yes.
Councilmember Spurlock.
Yes.
Councilmember Sutherland.
Yes,
Deputy Mayor Bernard.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. So do we need a formal motion to excuse Jerry from the
I think we do.
workshops? Okay, is anyone willing to make that
I'll
motion?
make a motion that we excuse the city attorney from the budget workshops
Do we have a
on
second?
Saturday, the 17th, and whatever the other date was.
31st.
31st.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Questions? Seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Councilmember Gray.
Yes.
Councilmember Spurlock.
Yes.
Councilmember Sutherland.
Yes,
Deputy Mayor Bernard.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, back to the trim
Bless you
notice rate. We do have to set one. We do not have a choice.
No, you gotta have something before you said August 4th, though,
Okay,
so.
so is anyone willing to make a motion for a new trim notice amount?
And similar to the one we just voted against?
Why that happened, I don't know. It doesn't really make sense,
Okay.
but
I make a motion that we leave the millage exactly where it is. of
Second.
point-
second it. Okay. Well, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
May I ask who seconded? I heard 2 voices.
I did. Stanley?
You
Okay.
could do
So-
it, yeah.
So we have a motion and a second. Any further questions? Seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Councilmember Gray.
Yes.
Councilmember Spurlock.
Yes.
Councilmember Sutherland.
Yes,
Deputy Mayor Bernard.
No.
Mayor Anderson.
No.
Motion carries.
All right, well, you have your answer. Anything else on the trim notices?
No, that would take care of it. I would mention that I will be moving forward with notifying the property appraiser's office of this information. And I'll do that on the website so I can get that accomplished tomorrow. Make that adjustment to the form that's there. And at that point signify that the city has completed that particular portion of the trim compliance package.
Okay.
So we still need to have meetings next month?
Yeah. Budget workshop,
Okay.
for sure. We're gonna have to work harder on the budget now because we don't have any money in it.
Yeah.
So, thanks. All right, and item number 13, Cruz Grove's annexation. Manuel?
In November of 2018, the city attempted to annex several parcels, including the parcel presently under consideration near the Pinecrest Golf Course. The effort came to an end after the county informed the city of a defect in the process. The owner of the parcel, Cruz Groves, now comes to the city seeking annexation of this one parcel so he can move forward with the development plans for adjoining parcels. The issue with the county was straightened out.
Okay. You're looking for a motion to approve.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Is this the same property that we talked about a while back, that this would create an closing, an enclave? Yeah.
An enclave, yes.
Is it still the same? Will it
Same.
still? So why would we annex it?
No,
if
this is
it's-
not.
It's not.
That's what I'm asking. He's saying,
Okay, so at some point late in November of 2018, the previous administration attempted to annex a number of properties around the Pinecrest Golf Course. And in doing so, they made an error, and they created an enclave.
okay.
This was one of those parcels, but it was not the one that caused the enclave. That was on the golf course. The owners of those properties, the other 4 parcels, have asked the city not to move forward with the annexation. But this one parcel, which did not cause the enclave, the owner is now stepping forward and saying he wants to move forward with the annexation.
Okay, on this one piece of property?
Just this one parcel, yes.
And
The
then-
annexation was a little further north on the golf course.
Okay, so now so this is to go to the county to ask them if this,
Yes.
okay. And if they say, this will create an enclave, then we will back off of it, is that right?
Well, it would not create an enclave.
I understand. I got you.
So that previous attempt on the part of the city made the county much more aware of their role in approving annexations.
Yeah.
So to make this kosher, so to speak, we're asking for this motion so we can now send the required notice to the county and then start the process.
Okay.
Okay. Any further questions?
Where's the paper?
We looking for a motion?
Where's the property?
Please.
This one?
We're doing the triangle, right?
The little
Yes.
triangle?
Do we have a motion?
I have a motion, we go ahead and approve item number E13, Cruz Grove's annexation of parcel number, address 5372 Lake Denton Road.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further questions?
Yeah, I have one other question.
Go ahead.
Now I see the little triangle down here. So the property around this is belonging to whom? The county or us?
Those are city,
That's what I'm asking. That's what I don't know.
yeah.
But they belong to various,
Huh?
they belong to various property owners. They don't-
No, but are they in the
No,
city or the
city
county?
Yeah, there's marked there. There's sort of there's markings showing which ones is
The
inside the
That
city.
triangle.
Yeah, the little cross hatching,
Mhm.
that's all city
Triangles
property.
of city.
Okay, that's what, okay, I see. Thank you.
Okay.
Any further questions? Seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Councilmember Gray,
Yes,
Councilmember Spurlock,
Yes.
Councilmember Sutherland,
Yes,
Deputy Mayor Bernard,
Yes,
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
okay.
but, and just to ask a question of staff, the little area there, address Lake Bonnet Road, 2273 and 2285, those look to be an enclave. They're
Oh, that-
surrounded, they're
that was
surrounded by the golf course.
That was the initial map to show you where things stood.
Okay, so this map isn't accurate?
No, the map is accurate, but we're only doing one parcel. I included that second map to give you the broader picture where everything is. But there's only one parcel under consideration, and that's the triangle.
Okay, but what I'm saying is the area that doesn't have any cross hatching on it,
It's
Is-
unincorporated. Mhm.
that is not annexed in,
No.
correct? But they have a covenant. That's
Talking
the,
about here.
no, I'm talking about, the little stubby piece right there in the middle.
I'm not sure there is a covenant in place yet, but they did come forward and
They
request.
have water and sewer,
Mhm.
so they
Well,
must have a covenant.
it-
I'm
more
just saying
likely,
that they're
yeah.
not annexed in yet, but
No.
by them not being annexed in, it makes what is inside, I don't know, it just looked like an enclave to me in there,
To me
but.
too, it really does, but.
That's
he
surrounded
says
by a
it's
golf
not.
course, I
Yeah.
guess, and it just kind of conceals it.
No, but those are not
Okay.
being annexed, no.
Okay. Any further questions? Seeing none, we'll call the roll.
Yeah, it's an enclave.
We did it already.
It is.
Yeah.
We called it already.
Jeff's not here.
You need to.
I will.
We haven't called the roll yet, have we?
No.
No, we haven't called the roll yet.
Are you sure this is
Yeah.
not an enclave? I mean, it looks like it to me.
We called it already.
If the county passes it,
No, not the little triangle spot that we just approved. Brenda and I happen to be looking at the same thing. It's the address 2273 Lake Bonnet Road, and then the address 2285 Little Lake Bonnet Road. It's a light gray, because we don't have a color sheet.
That's right.
Okay, so those two say county on them, but they're surrounded by a non-cross-hatched area, by a cross-hatched area, which is city. So to me, it looks like they're surrounded by city. And that wasn't looked at. We're only looking at the triangle, but the other two certainly look like they're an enclave.
No, the only parcel under consideration is that triangle.
Okay, I'm just saying
Gotcha,
okay.
Quit talking to me, move.
The-
All right.
You've already voted.
We've already voted, right?
Yeah.
It was, yes.
No, that what we voted on has nothing to do with those two.
Yeah, I know.
okay. Moving on to item number 15. Councilmember Stanley Spurlock, City Manager Performance. Okay. Oh,
It's an enclave.
Got it where it says, I'm requesting a review of the city manager. That's his words, that's not mine. I've never requested a review of it. I just,
What?
requested some information here.
Stan, I'm sorry, I'm not hearing what you're saying. You-
he'll clarify when he sits down. yeah.
No, you can stand up, but I'm just,
No,
I
I
didn't
was
hear what you
passing
were
those out.
saying.
15 says that I was requesting a review of the city manager's performance. That's not what I'm doing, that's his words. All I was doing and all I've ever done was just seek some information that I thought I was entitled to as being a councilman. And I tried week after week, month after month, and I didn't get that information. And I think I kind of figured out why I didn't get that information. But anyway, we got into this discussion, and what started it was the city manager provided us with a budget that he was going to hire from within, and I kind of keyed in on one particular thing. Nothing against her, because she's a great lady and all that, but I asked this question numerous times. Were we paying the administrative assistant $35,360? And I never got an answer on that. And I asked that I get a copy, a roster of every city employee with what they were paying. And for some reason or another, it would be forgot by the city manager, or he didn't have it, or whatever. And then the mayor asked me if this was something I could go to his office and get worked out. So I went to his office and I asked that question. Let me back up a minute, I got ahead of myself. We actually in this talk, we put a freeze on all raises. And the city manager answered 3 times that we were not given any raises, hadn't given any raises, maybe made some pay adjustments, and he didn't know why I made that motion. So you asked me to go to his office, which I did, and we talked about that for a second, and I said, are you paying this specialist $35,360? And he said, no, I'm not. He said, I had to actually bump her up 3 times in order to get it. And I said, this was my words. I said, that's fine, just don't lie to me, just don't. And he gave me a roster, and when I got home with it, that roster was an old roster. So I called David back and I said, David, this is an old roster. It's not the right one. And he said, well, Ricky will have to get you the right one, and I'll get with him. We went through almost 2 months. We went through 3 meetings, and I did not get that information until finally Deputy Mayor Bernard asked for that too, and we got it. And this just kind of kept bubbling with me, and I started doing some research on this, and I went to David and I told him, I said, David, you just flat lied to me. And he said, I take offense to that. I'd been a deputy, a county commissioner, and all of the things he went through. I said, I don't care. You still was not truthful in forthcoming with me everything I was asking for. And when I worked on this right here, I found out that we've give out $215,728 in raises. Raises is what we give out, because we kept saving money from this retirement or this termination, and we still didn't have the money. And I got to figuring up, but I went right through raises that we've given. It's $215,000. If I put on everybody that's been hired, less the terminations, it's over $300,000. So that's why I wasn't getting my information, and I thought that I was entitled to that. That's all I'm asking for. I just thought I was entitled to that information. I'm not questioning your job performance.
You're assuming here that there's 23 new positions.
I'm not assuming any new position.
That's what you wrote down here, new positions. And you
Where'd I
got them
write
out-
new positions 23?
You wrote new in that column right there.
No. That new on top is the new list you finally gave me. I got list 1, 2, 3, and new.
Okay.
That new don't have anything to do with positions.
Where on earth are you coming up with $215,000?
If you add up what I got highlighted in yellow right there, if you add that up compared to the hourly rate of what each employee was making to what they are making now, that's $215,000 more money than it was.
Well, some of those are contract raises.
And
by
some
the
of
fire
them-
department.
Some of them are
They
what?
changed positions,
Contract.
Stanley.
Step
And-
raises, the fire department.
Oh, I'm not.
And some of them are gone.
I'm not saying anything about a step raise. I'm not talking about that. They're in here, but I'm just saying there's $215,000 of raises.
So do you consider it a raise if someone changes positions?
How are you talking about changing positions? That's
If
all.
they're-
That's taken care of in here.
If they're promoted up. I have
they're
to
promoted.
disagree.
If
Or
you,
added additional job titles, added additional duties?
If you go right over here, you got 108,000 less in terminations. I didn't figure in any of the, like you were saying, promotions or anything like that. I'm just talking about how much more money we're putting out than what we were putting out.
We're not.
But don't cloud the issue. Don't cloud the.
We're not. I'm telling
Okay,
you.
don't cloud the
Are we?
issue. The
No.
issue was simple. Why wouldn't you give me the report I was asking for?
Stanley, I've told you this before.
Tell
I
me.
gave you everything you asked
Oh,
for
don't
when
even-
you asked for it.
Is somebody gonna be here to help you get home tonight? Because
Stanley.
if you think you gave me everything I asked you
Stanley,
for,
if
you
we've
know
had
better.
if we've had a miscommunication, then I apologize.
There's no
But
miscommunication.
I promise to you, I have never, ever tried to mislead you. Everything I've done has been in good faith. Everything I've been done has been in the best intentions of the city.
Have you give raises?
Have I given raises? Yes, I've given raises.
Why did you tell me that you hadn't?
If you put it in the context of that conversation,
Which conversation?
the one that you're talking about June 10th,
The where? In the office or here?
here,
Okay,
in the meeting June 10th,
okay.
where you said 3 times I said I hadn't given any raises. If you put it in, I transcribed that entire conversation. I had it transcribed. If you put it in the context of where you were going with no future raises, what I said, I never told you that I never gave any raises. That question and that answer was never given. What I said was, and I'll still maintain this, you froze the raises, I'm not giving any raises. That was the context that I had that at. And if you read it word for word, the way it was said that night, the way it all came out, that's exactly the way it was. You are implying that I'm trying to hide something from you here, and I assure you that has never been my intention.
Do you-
Why on earth would I try to hide something?
I give up, I don't know. But I want to ask you this question. Did you tell me in your office I misspoke maybe I was wrong. How can I correct this? You remember saying that?
I did say that. In the context of trying to figure out exactly what you were looking for. What can we do to fix this, Stanley? That's what I'm asking. What can we do to fix this?
All I was saying is I was given a budget that we're nowhere near. We're under.
We are actually under it.
Well, you say that. You say that we're under it. I mean, you know, when I look, it ain't.
David, are we under budget according to your opinion or our finance director's opinion?
According to our finance director's opinion.
You concur?
I know you can't hear my head rattling. That answer was yes. I concur.
So you got the city manager and the finance director saying that we're under budget.
Okay.
And you're saying that we're over budget.
I didn't
So-
say we were over budget. I
Yes,
said,
you just
I
did,
said
Stanley.
we're giving $215,000 in raises.
I
It's not
disagree
Period.
with
That's
that
what I
figure.
just said.
I disagree
true.
with that figure.
But you can.
And I think some of these ones that you've gotten on here are not even positions that are here anymore.
They're not even positioned for what?
They're not even here anymore. Like you've got one here. I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to study your figures to figure out where you're coming from.
Also Andrew Mogul and Richard Reed, they're not even on the list at all.
Because you said June 14th.
Well, it don't matter. We're trying to figure up a total picture here.
I understand, but I gave you what you wanted on the date that you wanted it. You said do it through June 14th. That was the end of a pay period. Those two guys started in the following 2 weeks after that.
David, I have a question, and I'm not trying to go off on a tangent here. And, you know, I was here at that meeting on June the 10th or 8th. Was it the 10th? Whatever date that was, that last meeting. And I remember Stanley asking you a particular question on the executive assistant. He honed in on that a couple of times, and neither time did you answer the question. So I'm going by what he handed out that night, and I circled here just right now. He had asked a particular question on February the 25th. You had given us this budget. You gave this to us.
It was a different sheet than that, I think.
Well, I don't know where he would have gotten this then if this was not what we got. This
It
is
was-
one,
it
you know,
was-
there was another, there's been 4 handouts, actually, yeah, 4 handouts given to city council. We had another one that you handed out. I don't know what date this one was, but this also Stanley gave us, but I don't know if he
That's the
was
one.
the only one that got it. So anyway, these numbers of what your hiring rates were going to be, and we've had this discussion, but these hiring rates are not what you hired them at. And I think that in order to alleviate Mr. Spurlock's concerns, I think it would be prudent to say, you know, this was the budget that we had, but I didn't hire them at this amount. Instead, I hired them at a different amount, and it didn't reflect on the first budget or roster. It didn't reflect on the second roster. It may have reflected on the third roster, and you may have had to look at it that way. But nonetheless, it is confusing because they're not all similar. It's like not apples to apples, and you know, one says one thing and then the other one, you don't really realize what's going on until you have them all in front of you. So the opportunities that we had to look at it, you know, in those meetings, whenever we would see them 5 minutes before the meeting, that's not enough time for anyone to look at anything really and to come to any conclusion unless you sit there with all of it in front of you. My concern, and I was quoted in the paper regarding the hiring practices, and this has nothing to do with Stanley's issue, but I think it's very prudent to say that when you advertise a position, that it be advertised with its range, because otherwise it's eliminating the opportunities for others to apply for that particular job. So when this was given out with the $34,000 for one particular job, one would assume that's what the job pays. It turns out the job paid $43,000 instead. So for even internal applications with employees on the inside of the city or even outside the city, if they're told it's 35, a lot of people won't even apply because it would be a cut in pay. But when you turn around and make it 43 without advertising it as such, then those individuals feel like, wait a minute, I would have applied for that job had I known it was going to be that much. And that's happened not just with that one, but then in looking at Stanley's info, the same thing happened with 2 other administrative positions where it was advertised for a certain amount. I went to the Florida League of Cities, and I wish I had a documentation with me, but I've got the photograph of it actually. Every position on the Florida League of Cities has a range of, $20,000 to $60,000, $14 to $18. Everybody in the entire state of Florida, except Avon Park. It says $50,000 to $50,000 for a city clerk / grant writer. And I know that you ended up hiring somebody that admitted to you she's never written a grant in her life, but you still hired her at 63. Not the 50 for which it was advertised. So had people known that you were going to remove a component of that job description and then all of a sudden pay 63 when it was advertised for 50, I have a problem with that, because you would not have gotten just the limited information, or rather applicants. You could have had exemplary individuals had they known that the range was going to go up to 63, which I don't even know what the range is. It could go up to 72 for all I know. But just from that point of view, I think that was my concern.
Can I respond to that one?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
We don't know where the Florida League of Cities got that figure. We didn't provide it to them. We didn't post a salary figure on that. The applicants that we got to interview for that particular job did not see that website. So they don't know where that came from.
But other people may have and
Other
didn't
people-
apply for the job. But
I understand what you're
it's
saying.
interesting
and
you say that, though, because when you go to the website itself, you have to enter your data, your code, your city, your information, your population, and your range. So, and it even said grant writer in there. So, I mean, where else did it get advertised? Did someone, who else would put that in there?
They did it.
They did.
They did it, and they don't know how it happened. We've talked to them about that. We don't know exactly how that happened, but I thought I had the email chain here where we actually did that, but I don't think I have it with me.
Do you all, I'm not familiar with your personnel manual, but do you have job descriptions that have salary ranges in them?
We didn't publish any of those job descriptions with a salary range in them. It was all to be negotiated at the time of the job offer.
But when applicants apply and they call City Hall and they ask what the pay range is, they're given a very low number without any kind of range. I had to call City Hall one day and ask the range on particular jobs in another department. And it was interesting because the HR person said, well, you must be getting a lot of calls. I said, no, I'm not getting. Only one person called me, but while I have you on the phone, give me this range. Everyone else in the state puts a range on. The county has an amazing way of doing theirs. There's even a copy of one in here based off of some other data that you have in this packet. There's a range. And I think in all fairness, in order to attract the diversity that we so desire, that I remember speaking about the night that we were here and when you first started, I think it's really important to put the range in there. People need to know what they're applying for. I got a call from a lady out of Polk County that's a CPA government accountant that happens to be an HR director. And she told me that had she known this job was going to pay 63 or even more, because you told me it could go up to 70 or something like that, she would have said, you know what, I'll take it, because she actually lives in this area and commutes to Polk County. And you would have had an amazing employee with more experience than you need at a lower rate, and you would have gotten more bang for your buck that the taxpayers pay for.
But
So-
had she looked at the application, she would have seen that it said salary to be discussed at time of the job.
And when she called, she was told it was $50,000.
Well, I
So-
think it's a good practice. I mean, I don't have
Yeah,
I don't
I
have a
mean-
dog in this present fight, and please, but I think the future practice, it's a good practice to have a range of salaries, and
And
that,
I'm
and
all
that way
for
it's
that.
get modified by resolution from time to time, whatever it needs to be done.
Most of these positions were in the old 999 job classification. Do you know what that?
Yes, I do.
You know what that pay range is?
And I don't know all the specific pay ranges, but when I spoke to Ms. Dane, it's been maybe 2 months ago or maybe a month and a half ago, she said that she was going to change all those. And to this day, nothing's been changed. And you still have the previous HR name person up on the top, so when people call, she doesn't even work there anymore.
Well-
I just think that if you're going to be hiring professionals, like you claim that, we're hiring all these professionals, already we've discovered several mistakes in the hiring practices for the city. That being one of them. We're turning people away because they don't know what it is, and when they call, if they get through, they might be given a number, and when the number is given, it's a low number. When people sit in your what do you call it, your interviews, I know of one that was told 35, no negotiating. So she was like, oh, geez, it's going to be a cut in pay. I know of other people at city that work for the city that would have been interested in that job had they known that one of the other jobs that you had paid 43 with no government experience, and they had it. So, you know, it's misleading for a lot of the people in this community. I love the fact that, you know, we have the opportunity to be able to serve the people in our community that live here. You know, and why not hire people that are here that know this community and love this community? Instead, we're just going all over the place, giving low numbers over here, hiring them at higher numbers. I saw in this paperwork as well that, you know, and you had given me, by the way, the job description for your HR person, for example, and you had told me that it was a $55,000 job. That's what I was calling my friends about in terms of City of Sebring, hey guys, do you know of anyone that might be interested? And then they referred people. I don't know if those people ever applied, but 55 was the number. Next thing I know, you hire the individual at 60, and then within 2 months, you gave her a $12,000 raise. So, and it didn't match the job description. That was not within the 999, because she was hired at one thing, and then all of a sudden she's something else at the highest amount ever paid to that position in the history of Avon Park. And, you know, there ought to be some kind of back check on, you know, what are these people earning in the past? How many other jobs did they have combined into one? I'm just worried, and I'll tell you.
You don't really check the historic salaries anymore.
Well, but you can. I mean, that's at their fingertips to be able to look at what was there just 3 months ago. But this is the reason why I don't want the taxes to go up, because I have this uneasy feeling that because we have $1 million surplus in payroll, that we can go ahead and spend it. But yet we have all these other issues that we have to address in terms of our infrastructure and, you know, fire assessment and the raises given to the fire department without approval by the city council. There's just a lot of those little things. And I know that there's a learning to be done. I'm giving you constructive criticism by, you know, I don't want you to take it other than the fact that I know that we're all learning as we're here and we're trying to work with you. But in order to move forward, if these things aren't addressed ahead of time, then we don't move forward. We keep committing the same mistakes.
And actually, the advertised jobs that are available now do not have a price range on them, on the website.
Right now on the city website, there's not a price range on
There's
anything.
4 positions and it doesn't say what the pay is. I think that's a mistake. If we have to make a motion
And it
to
wouldn't
do
be that difficult. I mean, she can just put it in there, just type it in. I mean,
So
it's,
your personnel policy, as I recall, is approved by resolution. And so you should, I mean, it's my recommendation that you have a range, even if you make it, you know, a large range, you know, depending on qualifications. And then you can modify that as need be in order to compete with other cities or, you know, governments and whatever. But I believe the range is, it's going to.
And actually, a couple months ago, we were going to look at the changes to the personnel policy.
yeah,
and it
it's
was
in the
pulled-
policy.
It was pulled, but it's been at least 2 months and nothing's come back.
Right, no, but it is in the
change it.
policy. There is a range. Of course, not every job description is in there. I mean, I don't know, we have, what, 200 job descriptions?
It takes time.
You
And
know,
where is
so-
the budget? I mean, where is the budget? I mean, I keep hearing that you keep saying he's under budget. Where is the budget? Because all I have is what you gave me, David.
No, that was just off of conversations that I've had with him, and he mentioned tonight, that was Ricky that came out and said that.
Oh.
And look, I know also that we're underpaying some individuals because of their retirement status, and I think we're getting a bang-up deal for particular individuals
Yes.
that probably would rather be home, you know, watching Breaking Bad than being here. So,
Well, I love that show.
I do, I haven't watched it yet. But
Okay,
anyway,
so let's go through this one at a time.
but anyway, those are just my concerns, and,
So
you know.
your main concern is with the advertising of the job positions, is that correct?
Yes, and making sure that we give accurate ranges so that when people apply for a job, they don't, you know, when they're told it's a certain amount, that they know what the range is, because then you get an actual bigger pool of candidates.
Okay. Do you have any problem with putting a range on all of the open positions?
I have no problem with that.
Okay.
Can that be effective immediately? Because you've got 4 job postings on the website right now that don't have a range.
Well, not right this minute.
Well,
but
you know what I'm
tomorrow.
saying.
Yeah.
It wouldn't take much to do that. Which, by the way, I think that, I know we can scrutinize anything and everything according to the charter in a public meeting, and I'm sorry, but I don't think that that the HR department right now is doing the professional job that is expected of them at the current rate of pay that they're getting with that $12,000 raise.
All right. Is there any other questions or concerns?
Nope.
Stanley, your concern was?
No, I'd just like to have a copy of the budget. I mean, you keep saying that he's under budget, and Ricky says he's under budget. I'd like to have a copy of that budget.
You can have the original budget. It doesn't really explain a whole lot. You really have to
We
see
can-
where we are at that
Stanley,
exact time.
Yeah, all I've seen is just one sheet of paper, and it just shows where we are right now, what it was last year, and the over-budgeted amounts that were provided by the previous administration that right now he sees as a surplus, and they just discovered that in the last, 2 weeks? So going back, the fact that they only discovered this 2 weeks ago, when you look at the preliminary numbers that he gave us, Stanley, on your first little sheet, they weren't accurate because they didn't know how much they had.
That's just salary and wages. That's your
Where's that sheet in there? There was one here from the county,
surplus is expected to be.
a job description.
It's all right. Thanks.
We're asking for an increase?
No, thanks. Yeah, this is what I saw.
Oh, there goes the lawyer.
You're out. You're out of the clan.
You're not allowed to sit.
So I see a number of
this up for you.
1.3 million there highlighted.
Your
Circle.
circled number at the very bottom right is what your projected savings are going to be off of your, just the salary and benefits line item of the budget. You can see the 4.6 is where it was started. I do not know why it was that high. Nobody can really answer that. The budget that we're working in was kind of rubber stamped from a previous year, so we really don't know why that was there. What you have spent so far in the first 9 months of the fiscal year is almost 2.5. Projected for the 12 months at our current salaries is 3.3 and change, leaving you a surplus unencumbered balance of 1.308652.
Is that if you filled all of the open positions?
That does include the open positions, correct?
Of which there's 4?
There's at least 4. There's more than that, I think.
And we
The
also
num-
have 2 more
the number
firefighters
would
to
be-
hire.
Yeah.
The number would be slightly less as far as the surplus, but not significantly less.
Okay. And that's assuming they're hired today. Okay. Okay. So I'm hearing a complaint of the way that jobs are advertised, and I've heard a complaint of the pay scale of certain employees. Does that sum it up? Okay. Is there anything else?
Move on.
All right. So to talk about some of the great things that are going on, this city has completely transformed from what it once was, less than a year ago. We have a city manager now that you can work with, a city manager now that you could yell at if you want to, and you don't have to worry about retaliation, which we haven't had in about a decade. The citizens of Avon Park seem to be very happy with our management team. We have extremely qualified people in those positions. Yes, some of them are paid a lot, but by the standards of the job and the performance that they're doing, it's within line, but that's debatable. That's your choice to complain to the city manager if you want to. I think a lot of this stuff is overstepping the bounds of day-to-day operations and interfering in what the city manager should do.
How is it overstepping the bounds?
Is it up to you what people are paid at the city?
I didn't say anything about it. I just asked, in the charter?
It's not.
It's in the charter. I can question that anytime I want to.
You can question it.
That's all I'm doing.
Okay. If that's all you're doing, that's fine.
And you saying I'm not working on the everyday operations of the city. I'm just doing what's within my right to do as elected official.
I think the pay scale qualifies as everyday operations.
I'm sorry?
I think arguing over the pay scale of employees does qualify as that, but
Well,
neither here nor there.
I mean,
Your
that's up to you.
opinion, my opinion.
That's your opinion, and I'll respect that, but it's in the charter that I can do that.
Okay. So going forward, I don't see the issues being a problem because we can just simply advertise the positions as was criticized. So So there's no issue there. Is there any other issues that need to be worked out?
It is what it is at this point.
No,
It's
but I-
$215,000 in raises.
It's not. It's,
Well, that's what you say.
that's what you say. I mean, it's,
Well, I
it's
just, I
pointless.
just got it off of his.
I would- I would
own-
rather-
ju-
I would rather
just got
go
it
by-
off of his records. That's where I come from. I mean, I didn't pull it out of the air.
Okay.
He gave me what I added up and what I
And,
subtracted.
and that's how you added it up, Stanley.
I'm sorry?
I believe what the financial
Oh, I
director
don't-
says
I don't
over your
deny
opinion.
him. I'm not denying that.
That's his job. That ain't yours. That's his specialty. If I need
That's
to buy
your-
if I
that's-
need to buy insurance, I'll talk to you. But
That's your
if
opinion.
I'm concerned about
That's your opinion.
financial
but I can
decisions,
add
I'll talk
that
to
up.
him.
That is, that's still my entitlement.
David,
to
are
add
we
that.
going to have the employee handbook pretty soon?
Hopefully.
Okay, and when that happens, there are areas in there that do reflect on the, I don't know if it's the advertising of the job, but it does say something in there about the percentage that can be paid to a new hire after they've been hired, based off of the lowest amount in there. I think it's only 10%. Maybe that needs to be looked at. If your goal is to hire people at higher than that 10%. The other thing also in there
Are
was.
you talking about exempt employees, though?
Exempt, that whole book is all about exempt. That has
Okay.
nothing to do with the non-exempt. That's what the other collective bargaining agreement is for.
Okay.
So, I mean, I'd like to move on with that because in there's a lot of things that can be changed. I know that I've spoken to you. I think we're very generous when it comes to the benefits that we provide the city of Avon Park. Extremely generous. I mean, if you compare it to Sebring, Okeechobee, Fort Myers, not Fort Myers, Fort Meade, many of the other vicinity communities, I think that once that's really illustrated, I think that the competitiveness factor that you were so seeking, I think is already in existence in our policies. So with the fire department getting this new step raise increase, I don't know that the union is going to come back and do that as well, but I will tell you this, I know for a fact that we pay more than everybody else in Highlands County when it comes to the way the union does in our step raises. I mean, we have people that, the college, for example, hasn't given raises for some individuals for nearly, 5, 6, 7 years. They don't have a union and they've been stuck for many years other than the COLAs. So anyway, those are just discussions that we can have when we go through the policy. But if the policy
We
isn't.
just hired a girl from the college.
Okay, and probably she didn't get a raise for the last 10 years. Am I right?
I don't know.
Anyway, once we get into the policy, even though it's not complete, can we start looking at it and at least going through it incrementally on some aspects? Because, that'll save us 5 hours of sitting through a policy because you know me, I'm going to sit there and question every one of them. So I think in the trying to save time and not sit here till midnight, I would at least like to see it in chunks. That way we can be done with it and it won't take as long as doing it in one fell swoop. But other than that, I mean, if you think we're going to have it, I was expecting it tonight. I mean, I know we keep hearing that it might be, but
We had a pretty full agenda tonight.
yeah, but nonetheless, I mean, we could have just hit or miss a couple of them. We don't have to do it all at once. I'm not one to just do it all because there will be lots of questions, and I would expect that some of the employees might want to have some input in there as well. So anyway, if we can see a piece of it at least. I know we've spoken about the benefits for you as well, and that you don't want to include those in the policy handbook, which, by the way, only has to be changed by resolution. We can change that any time we want. It doesn't require an ordinance. So, it's a moving target. So, but anyway, I think that if that is going to be done, that we start looking at that as well.
Okay, Mayor, you mind if I make one comment?
Go ahead.
I think coming into this year, first of all, we have a very different makeup of the city council with a lot of personal opinions that are, basically we have the opportunity to enjoy, express our opinions, where maybe in the past we didn't. At the same time, we basically have almost a brand-new staff. And I think that some of us have extremely high expectations of our staff. And we want nothing but the best, and we're expecting a lot out of you, and I think maybe in 6 months, we maybe expected too much too soon. I can imagine it took 3 or 4 months just to get caught up from what the previous administration had put us into. And so I appreciate the efforts that you brought us up to now. But that's not saying that I don't have high expectations for you for the rest of the year. And so I think that you're capable. I think our staff is capable. And I look forward to see what the next 6 months brings us, because I think we've had a good start, maybe not quite as good as some people thought, but I think we're going in the right direction. I think we basically have a open door policy, which I enjoy. I think all of us up here have the opportunity to speak our opinions, which sometimes in the past, nobody up here did anything besides say yes. So I really enjoy the situation now. I look forward to us moving forward, and I think that our expectations will be met by the end of the year.
Okay. Does anyone have anything to say?
Nope.
Okay.
This was in the packet. This is a position by the Highlands County on the EMS, and it has a salary range on it, and this is what the county uses for all of their jobs. You've seen them. You know what I'm talking about.
Okay, is there anything else on item number 15?
No.
Seeing none, moving on.
Wait, one thing.
It better be good.
It is good. When a candidate says, "I'm not coming for that," let them go. If someone doesn't want to accept a pay rate that's being offered as a general pay rate, let them go. We don't have to take somebody that demands a pay that's not in line with what this small city can afford. That's all.
This great city.
Yeah, but
Okay.
it's a small city.
And we have a city manager making what, $45,000 to $50,000 less than
Yes.
2 city managers ago? Okay. All right. So, city manager report.
What I would like to do right now is call up Sheriff Blackman. He has been very patient. Okay, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
First off,
Name and address, please.
Robert Border, my address isn't public record,
That's
but I
fine.
do live in the city of Avon Park. I thought. First off, I've known Mr. Flowers my entire life, and I feel like y'all are questioning his integrity, and I think that's absolutely wrong. I think I might have made a mistake in how I voted. Probably won't happen again. And that's pretty much all I have to say.
Thank you. Anyone else? Name and address, please.
Long time since I walked these halls. Wally Randall, 55A Miracle Avenue, Avon Park. The thing I think that's being overlooked is it took about 10 years to get to this position that we're in as a city. You know, there's an old saying about Rome wasn't built in a day. Well, neither is this city going to be resurrected in 6 months.
Yep.
I think it's well to have high expectations and high ideals and all that stuff. It's better to shoot for the stars and land on the moon. But I think you, at the same time, somewhere along the line, have to be realistic, engage, like you were talking about, the improvements that have been made, and the improvements you hope to be made this time next year. One of the things that I think the city council and I fell short on was setting the millage rate, the trim rate, because I think what you're doing is you're dooming our city to repeat what we've been repeating the last half dozen or so years. It's my opinion.
Thank you, Lon.
Is
that microphone working?
That sounds a little low.
You got to talk right into it.
Speak loud, Anna.
I think I might. Anna Marie Feeney, 234 East Camphor Street, Avon Park, Florida. I've been coming to this council chamber for many years. I'm going to say this right now. What everybody seems to forget here is that we're all here for a common purpose. There is no higher purpose than to serve others. And each and every one of you made that conscious choice to do that. So do our first responders, so do our veterans. The only thing I'd like to suggest is when you are sitting up here serving our community, that you remember you are all brought here for that same common goal and give each other the proper respect that all of you deserve. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I would like to call up Sheriff Paul Blackman. He came here with some figures for us. And I didn't know he was coming, or I would have put him on the agenda, but I'm so happy to see him here. But he had promised us before that he was going to give us some follow-up numbers, and that's what he's here to do.
Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Evening.
Morning. Is it morning yet?
One of the two.
For the record, Paul Blackman, Highlands County Sheriff. And last time I was here, I had made the promise that I would come back and kind of give you some more statistics on some numbers that we had based upon the service that our deputies are providing for law enforcement for the city of Avon Park. So these numbers that I'm going to give to you are from April 2019 to June 30th, 2019, which for us would be our second quarter. It's over 90 days. For that 90-day period, calls for service 3,898. Offense reports written, so basically of those 3,898 calls we went to, 558 of those generated an offense report. A deputy would need to either write a report, turn in evidence, some sort of situation where it had to be documented as a written report. Our top 6 offenses of those 3,898 calls we responded to, disturbance, which family disturbance for us is referred to as a domestic. We responded to 51 of those types of calls. Traffic offenses or a traffic arrest, we made 46 arrests in that same 90-day period. We responded to 44 batteries. We Baker Acted 28 people. We responded to 26 theft reports, which were petty thefts, which most of those were generated from Walmart for whatever reason. And then we made 25 felony narcotic arrests for the city of Avon Park. Traffic citations issued for that same amount of time was 229. Traffic warnings that were written warnings, 223. Traffic verbal warnings, 318. And traffic crash investigations within the city of Avon Park during that 90-day period was 110. So I kind of skimmed over a lot of those. I think the Major had brought a packet of this to give to Mr. Flowers, and he can make copies of it for your review in case you have questions. I'll take any questions now that you might have pertaining to that. And if you don't have any questions, just from a standpoint of the sheriff who represents the whole county, particularly your residents that are in the city of Avon Park, which it's our pleasure to do. Since Mr. Flowers has come on board, he's been very professional with us from a standpoint and very responsive to anything that we might have asked for him or from him. So our relationship from a sheriff's office standpoint is, I would say, much improved. So thank you. Any
Sheriff
questions?
Blackman, may I ask you one question? On the south side of Avon Park, there was a tower up there. Are you going to be doing that periodically throughout the whole county?
A what?
A tower?
Well, there is a what we call an eye in the sky.
Oh, a
which
tower.
is
Yeah,
marked-
eye in the sky.
Which
Okay.
is a marked piece of equipment that we can elevate. It gives us a better view of what's going on. We oftentimes use it in our shopping centers during Christmas time and stuff, so we can kind of prevent any vehicle burglaries. We have used it in the Highway Park area. We have used it now in the Sebring and the Washington Heights area, and it is currently located in the Avon Park area. as
They
of
just
now.
moved it today.
Yes,
And,
ma'am.
but is that going to be periodically around through the whole county?
Well, it was just sitting at our shop,
Yeah.
not doing anything, so we thought we would put it to good use and move it around the
It's very
county
good.
wherever we might deem it's necessary.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I got a lot of calls on that. They thought I knew.
Good calls.
I said, we're watching, that's what we're doing.
I have one question for you too, if I could, Mr. Blackman. In my opinion, I think in the past, it seemed like we've had a large amount of traffic accidents in Avon Park, mainly on 27. So excluding the issue on Main Street and 27, where do we stand compared to the last year, this year, as far as traffic accidents? Because it seems like every week we hear of something happening, and if that's true, what do you think one of the causes or causes may be?
Well, I do think that construction project on 27 plays a major factor, not just at Main Street 27, but because of the traffic patterns and how they sometimes switch without warning. And because of the shape of the road is in there, it's kind of really hard to tell, especially in the summer evenings when we have our rains, kind of what the pattern of the traffic pattern is doing. So I think that's going to really throw your numbers off one way or the other. And in this particular case, it's going to throw them to the bad. So you're having a lot more crashes. Until they get that finished, I think your numbers are going to continue to be on the rise. Now, we finished up our Step 77 program, which Captain McGann in the back of the room was responsible for, and there were some good statistics that came out of that. So the unmarked or the marked patrol cars that were sitting in your intersections, what we designated as high traffic crash intersections, they were sometimes manned and sometimes unmanned. Those really made a significant difference, and I'm going off my head, but I think it's about a 36% decrease in accidents in those particular intersections where we placed those vehicles.
Okay, can I add a question to that? On Highway 27, shouldn't that be as equally or just as much paroled by the highway patrol, state patrolmen, besides the sheriff's department? Because I very rarely see them. If I do, it's there for a couple of days and then they're gone. Is that something that they should be responsible besides the sheriff's department?
I would agree with that statement, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else for the sheriff?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity, and I'll pick my date wisely next time.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Appreciate you.
Come after dinner.
On the city manager report that you have in front of you, the red items are what I can change something on. On the Brickell building, waiting on a report from insurance adjuster. The total cost on the damage repairs that the city is actually out of pocket on were $117,328.61.
Does that include the roof?
That does include the roof. I can't remember the guy's name from Thompson Baker, Matt. He is working on actually finalizing a claim for us on that right now. Classic Calandia damage from Irma, he looked at that as well. He's working on that issue. I don't have a report from him yet, but he does believe that we're going to be able to get something back on that. That one, if you recall, was somehow missed when all the hurricane damage was reported. That particular one was just not turned in as a claim. So he's trying to see if they can go back on that. Now, it was very obvious when we inspected the building what was caused by the hurricane. So there is some stuff to be done on that. Going down to the airport taxiway project, 2 bids in. The recommendation from Amherst is nixed on which way to proceed with the contractor. Wawa 27 South project, agreement signed. Capacity fee check has been received for about $14,000 and something dollars. We have ordered the PO today for Excavation Point to do the job. 18 East Pine Street, we should be able to close on that in the next few weeks. We're working with Attorney John McClure's office on that right now, and then I will once we close it and own the property free and clear, I will come to you for discussion on what you actually want me to do with it. Tear it down, turn it into a parking lot, whatever. That we'll have that discussion once we have title in hand. Holiday lighting preparations. We've compiled a priority list. We'll discuss that. I didn't put that on the agenda tonight on purpose because I knew we had a lengthy agenda tonight. So we'll be discussing that on August 12th. Small parcel annexation, y'all just did that, so that was taken care of. Also, we had discussed at the last meeting putting items on govdeals.com that requires a procurement policy revision. That too will be on the August 12th agenda to revise our procurement policy manual in order that we can take advantage of that service. And that's all the changes or updates that I have for you right now. I stand ready for any questions.
I have a couple, just wanted to make a question concerning the job positions that are available. And we discussed earlier that there's 4 GIS analysts, equipment operator, line maintenance tech 2, wastewater plant operator. But I didn't see anything in there for a new city clerk. Are we still looking for a new city clerk position, or we hired somebody, or?
I will know tomorrow whether or not I need to re-advertise that.
Okay. All right. That's all I had.
Anything else?
CRA meeting, that's next week?
CRA meeting is tomorrow.
Okay,
Main Street.
here, that's the
At
group
what time?
board.
Okay.
What time?
Is it 5:30?
We have a question in the back. Patricia? Patricia Austin.
I'm not fast and sheriff was back here, but I want to tell him I thank him very much and the whole sheriff's department because, I mean, I think y'all doing a great job. And I know every time we needed y'all, you did there very professional, but we need you guys, not the police department, and don't go away. We
Okay.
need you.
Thank you, Patricia. Anything else on the city manager report?
That's all I have.
Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seeing no opposition, we are adjourned.
That was fast.
It's past my bedtime now. I have to go. Actually, I've been
Quickest
watching
thing of the
Stranger
night.
Things. It's the cutest show.
Thank you,
You
sir.
said CRA meeting
Appreciate it very much.
tomorrow?
At 6, yes.
What CRA meeting?
This is the global, the
Combined
combined board.
I think you'll have a sheet that shows what the request is going to be for next year. Percentage. Okay.
Is this mine or yours?
You know what? I just stick them in here. I keep getting free pens. I don't know. They just get handed out. They take up purse space.
Hey, Miss Bonnie.
Yes.
So,
I appreciate you very much.
Okay, that's fine.
David,
I have some time to.
this is what I know that she was referencing, but what I did in red there is